The best way to make your dreams come true is to wake up. That is a quote from the protagonist of today's story. But before we get into that oh so wonderful story, and let me tell you, do I have a good one for you today? There is something we first must address, and that is, I'm on my own today. I am on my own. My lovely co-host Hannah is no longer with us. Now that does make me sound like I'm saying she is dead. She is not dead. However, she is dead to me. Okay, that's a little bit too far. She's actually on holiday with her mother, would you believe? So, I'm riding solo. It's almost like she don't care about the podcast. I mean, let's be honest. How much, between me and you, how much does she really contribute to it, eh? Probably a good thing that she's gone. But in all seriousness, I am riding the episode alone today, so saddle up, yeehaw, all of that, because it is just me and you. Kind of lovely, really, isn't it? A little bit more intimate. Normally I mess up my words, something goes wrong, and Hannah just corrects me throughout it, and we just leave it in, because, hey, we're working like that. But I haven't got that this time, so I'm just starting again when I do something wrong or when it doesn't sound right. So, gosh knows how long it's going to take me to get through this. I think I'm just going to leave it in, and then Hannah can just come and comment all the things that I messed up on. The only problem is going to be that oh so important jingle, and I know you all love the jingle. It's my favourite part of the podcast. It's your favourite part of the podcast. And judging by the deeper analytics of this podcast, hey, that's what people are here to see, right? Just that 5-second jingle. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to ring her up mid-holiday and say, hey, some people have to work, We're trying to achieve something here. We're trying to be something. We're trying to be great. We're trying to be greatness, just like the woman of today's story, which we will get into. So let's ring her up so we can do that also important jingle. Here we go. Now, for everyone listening to this on wherever you listen to podcasts, probably Spotify, be prepared for some terrible and no doubtly windy audio. But for everyone watching this on YouTube, you get the lovely perk of seeing Hannah right next to us because I'm going to record the call. So here we go. Hello, Hannah. How's the holiday? Tell me all about
I can't be there today. I'm having a fantastic holiday.
Are you ready for the jingle?
Always ready to do the jingle.
What is it?
What's the plot?
Oh, come on, I need to know.
What's the
you're having a laugh now.
What's the plot? What's the plot?
Just tell me already.
What's the plot? What's the plot? What's the plot? What's the plot? What's the plot?
Woo! So, what are you going to be doing tonight?
What am I doing today?
Cancel. We don't need that. That's not important. Today's plot is another life story. This time, the life story of an icon. An icon in fashion. Someone who has defined themselves as an ice queen. An alien fleeing from District 8. A dominatrix. An inspiration for businesswomen around the world. An actual devil in actual Prada. Today's story is the life story of Anna Wintour. Oh, and I've also swapped out the wine today since I'm on my own. I got a gin and tonic instead. I know what you're thinking. Bubbles? Think about the gas, would you, man? Think about the gas. Well, I have thought about it. Maybe I'll burp from time to time, but you know what? I'm a renegade. Just like the antagonist of today's story. Delicious. Oh, and if you are watching this, you're probably thinking, what the hell is floating in the bottom of your gin and tonic? They're olives, them. Yeah, that's right, like a bit of a dirty gin and tonic. Okay, so the story begins 1949 in London, England. A woman is born, a woman named Anna Wintour. And already, we're coming in with a did you knows because she's such an American icon that one would be tempted to believe that she was birthed on the island of America. But no. It's actually British, which I think we all knew, but she grew up here. She was here for quite a while. Her father is Charles Wintour, who twice served as the editor of the Evening Standard newspaper, which if you're not from England, I don't know how much you know about this, but this is a big newspaper, really. So already she's got editorial journalism in her bones. In fact, she has mentioned before her father as the reason she found this passion of hers, because her dad used to ask her for advice on how they could reach a younger audience with the newspaper. So that's interesting as it was. However, the Evening Standard does not reach a younger audience, so I'm not sure how good she was at that. Probably not very good, judging by the reputation of the newspaper today. But moving on, she went to a private school in London, obviously editor of the Evening Standard. She's got that money. While she was in school, she got a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a rule breaker. She frequently rebelled against the dress code by winking up the hemlines on her skirts. So fashion icon right from the get-go. And another important factoid from her days at school, age 14, she began wearing her hair in a bob. And she hasn't changed it since. You know, she always says that she does not follow trends, that woman, and this is tribute to that fact, really. 14 years old, she starts wearing her hair in a bob, and still today she has that exact same hairstyle. And here's the real kicker, okay? Back when she did this, it wasn't necessarily in fashion. It wasn't like a big thing, wearing your hair in a bob. Ooh, trendsetter. No, it was uncool even back then. And it's still uncool today. Yet, she stands by that bob, and you know what? Looks pretty good, doesn't it? She also took fashion lessons from another school nearby, but she actually gave this up. She actually quit. She's quoted by saying that the reason she quit is because you either know fashion or you don't know it. So she's got no real training in fashion. I guess she just knows it, is what she's saying. It was around this time when she started dipping her toes in the door of journalism as well. She was with a boyfriend called Richard Neville. This was an older boyfriend of hers, which is something we see throughout the journey of her life. She always gets with older or powerful men who can kind of get her places. Case in point, this older boyfriend of hers, Richard, he was the editor-in-chief of the controversial magazine Oz, which is probably why she got with him. And hey, it worked out because she got some experience on the production of this magazine. Now, this was a real controversial magazine, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because, quite honestly, I had no idea what it was until last night when I started looking into it. And I think it deserves a whole video on its own, if I'm to be quite frank with you, because they really pushed the boundaries and they got in trouble quite a lot for many of controversial issues. I think they actually ended up, both this Richard guy and the other person that started the magazine, they went to court. There was like this big court case about obscenity of the magazine. I don't know, it's pretty crazy, but it's Oz Magazine if you want to do your own research, or just wait until I can muster up the energy to do my own video on it. She was then hired as one of Harper & Queen's first editorial assistants, beginning her career in fashion journalism. Straight off the gate when she went in this place, she told all her co-workers that her aim was to work at Vogue. So she didn't even want to be there, really. And this is when she first gets a reputation of being hard to work for. However, back in this day, she was an editorial assistant, so it wasn't hard to work for. It was hard to work with, which is just the worst. Like, if your boss is bossy, you kind of understand, right? I mean, it's in the name. But if your co-worker's bossy, oh, do you know what I mean? When a co-worker tries to overstep the line and starts taking liberties, it is just so tiresome. But she got a little bit of a reputation there. She ended up leaving after chronic disagreements with her rival, Min Hogg, who I believe was the editor of the magazine. She then quit and moved to New York City with another boyfriend of hers, freelance journalist John Bradshaw. And now we move into chapter 2 of our story of Anna Wintour. Chapter 2 is called New York City.
In New York you can
Just
be a
you
new
and
woman.
me.
In New York you can be
Just
a new
you and
woman.
me.
In New York you can be
Just
a new
you and
woman.
me.
In New York,
New York.
just you and me. Chapter 2 of Anna Wintour.
So sorry about that, but every time I hear New York City, I just immediately think of Hamilton. And then I have that song stuck in my head for about 20 minutes, so do excuse me. In her new home, she became a junior fashion editor at Harper Bazaar. Also, great word, bizarre. It's one of my favourite words ever. This was in New York City in 1975. 1975. New York City. I'm so sorry. I will stop now. I will stop. Wintour's innovative shoots led editor Tony Mazzola to fire her after 9 months. She got fired. Imagine firing Anna Wintour. She does the firing. She was actually quoted as well saying that being fired was something she thinks everyone should go through from time to time. However, I do think, did she just say that to somehow justify the fact that she does a lot of firing of her own? I do not know. I also found out that during this time, this kind of 1975 era, she also, this was after she got fired, she met up with Bob Marley and then they went away for like a few weeks. But I looked into this, I can't find any truth behind it. And she has said once that she's never met Bob Marley, but then there's a lot of stories that she has met Bob Marley. I don't know, but all I can picture is Anna Wintour and Bob Marley, 1975, away somewhere on vacay, just vacating like the Hamptons or something, and just getting it on. Interesting, right? After this break, she then went on to work for a woman's adult magazine called Viva, but she doesn't speak about this much. The magazine was owned by the wife of Penthouse magazine owner. Now, Penthouse is another controversial magazine, and once again, it's another story in its own. I don't know how much you know about Penthouse, but just to bring it down to Penthouse 101 for people who don't know, you have Playboy magazine, right? Everyone's heard of this. Hugh Hefner, oh, what a charmer he was, right? The bunnies, oh, so adorable and sassy and sexy. Yeah, yes they were. Those Playboy spreads, or whatever, I don't know, it was before my time, Playboy. Point being, Penthouse was like a raunchier Playboy. And you can imagine, we've all seen Playboy. They put boobs on the cover. So that was quite raunchy in its own, but Penthouse was raunchier. They put full frontal in the magazine. Full frontal. Bush and all. Oof. And they are the magazine that Pamela Anderson got into a whole beef with, hey? If you've watched the documentary, or not even the documentary, the Netflix show Pam and Tommy, which was really good. Oh my gosh, how much did she like Pamela Anderson? I know she had prosthetics on, but that was absolutely crazy. Anyway, Penthouse. Controversial. The wife of the owner had her own magazine, an adult magazine as well. This one was just for women. And who worked there? Anna Wintour for a little bit. Crazy. Now, during the next few years, she went on to work from magazine to magazine. She basically would go in, work for a magazine, either get tired and quit, or get fired for being too difficult to work with. And then we get to our next chapter, chapter 3, Vogue. Come on, Vogue. Woo! Let your body move to the music, move to the music. See, usually it's my co-host Hannah doing all these little song interludes, but she's not here, so I have to do them myself, don't I? Oh, the pain to do all this on your own. So Vogue, she started working there in the 1980s, like 1985, 1988. Someone got her in for an interview, and even though she wanted to work for it for a long time, she went in and started just straight off the bat negotiating for herself, and she ended up doubling her salary and getting a role that wasn't even available. It was a new role. Let me refer to my notes for this one. So she accepted the job after a bidding war that doubled her salary, becoming the magazine's first creative director. I mean, everywhere's got a creative director now, but this was the first time Vogue had a creative director. She instantly started making changes to the magazine, started trying to put her own stamp on things, and these were often made without Mirabella's knowledge. Mirabella was the editor-in-chief at the time, causing friction amongst those two and friction amongst the staff, which is something she does time and time again, and you've got to kind of give it to the woman, aren't you? I mean, she goes in, she knows what she wants, and even someone higher up than her, she's like, no. No, we're going to do things my way. This is what I want on the cover. This, not that, this. Don't know why she sounds like Hermione Granger, but there we go. In 1985, she attained her first editorship role, taking over the UK edition of Vogue. This was after the then editor-in-chief at the UK Vogue, Beatrix Miller, retired. So she moved back to the UK. Once in charge, she started firing pretty much half the workforce and making drastic changes to the way the magazine was run. This is when she earned the nickname Nuclear Winter. The editors who were not fired began to refer to this period as the winter of our discontent. Oh, they really did not like her. She was a harsh woman. Then in 1987, Winter returned to New York City to take over House and Garden magazine. It's worth noting that Vogue is owned by a company called like Costanade or something. I don't know, I've got it wrote down somewhere. It's not important to the story, so I haven't memorised it, but it's owned by a company that owns many magazines and many large magazines as well. They own Vogue, obviously, I've just mentioned that. They also own GQ, they own Vanity Fair, and at this time they own this magazine House and Garden. They took Anna Wintour back over. She wanted to move back to the States. They wanted to, judge up the House and Garden magazine, so they put her in charge. Once again, she made radical changes, started firing all the staff, started making all these changes to the magazine. She cancelled a $2 million worth of photo spreads and articles in her first week there. She even changed the name from House and Garden to HG. These changes worsened the magazine's problems. Yep. When the title was shortened to HG, many long-time subscribers thought they were getting a new magazine and put it aside for the real thing to arrive. They hated it. It went down the shitter. Her stamp was not wanted on that magazine, so that failed. So guess what she did? She went back to Vogue. Now we get to chapter 4, which I'm calling Vogue. Again. ... Again. She's going back to Vogue. This time she took over Mirabella's control and became editor at Vogue, a job that she always wanted. And you know what she did as soon as she got there? She started making changes. Changes. She started firing all the staff. She started zhuzhing up the magazine, as she always does. Try and put her stamp on things. Her stamp that has caused friction in the past. Her stamp that has not worked in previous job roles like with House and Garden. In fact, her first cover magazine was drastically different than any other cover magazines that Vogue had done before. See, when Mirabella was in control, she preferred to do these like tight headshots. If you ever look at any Vogue cover before like the 1980s or before like 1988, they're all like close-ups of really popular models, really famous models, makeup, glam, really tight headshot. Anna Wintour said, nah, not doing that. Don't want to do that. That was Mirabella's thing. That ain't my thing. And she started showing more of the body of models, photos that were taken outside, photos that were more candid. The first issue that she was in charge with, that was in November 1988, featured a 19-year-old model named Michelle Berku, wearing a pair of faded jeans worth $50 and a bejeweled jacket worth $10,000. It was the first time a Vogue cover model had ever worn jeans. Oh, outlandish. When the printers saw it for the first time, they called the magazine's offices thinking it was the wrong image. Now, I've seen this image. It's nothing really special, but at the time, it was crazy. Like, people were speculating, what does it mean? The bejeweled jumper had like a cross on it. People were like, is it a religious statement? Or because it was like 10,000 on the top, 50,000 on the bottom, it was like, is it some kind of political statement? And the model, she was pretty much unknown, and she wasn't looking at the camera. Normally they always look at the camera. She was like looking over here, looking all candid. I was like, whoa, what does it mean? What does it mean? Anna Wintour has spoken out on this, and she has said that she just liked the image. She saw it and she thought, yeah, pretty cool that. Let's stick that on the front. Now, since her first days as editor, she has required that photographers not begin work until she has approved the Polaroid and the setup and the clothing. Afterwards, they must submit all their work to the magazine, not just their personal choices. So she has a firm hand on the operations there at Vogue. Things went great, fantastic. Vogue became Vogue. Lots of high times. She went through lots of assistants. She did a lot of firing. She did a lot of hiring. And Vogue was selling. People were loving it. Vogue became in vogue. It became the thing. Then things started going downhill. Started going out of fashion a bit. In 2008, rumours arose that she would retire and be replaced by the editor-in-chief at Vogue France, the French Vogue editor-in-chief. That did not happen, clearly. That was 2008, and she's very much still got her finger on the trigger of Vogue. But saying that, wasn't every magazine during this period going downhill? Back in the 2000s, when everything started switching from paper to web, when everyone went online, when who even buys magazines anymore, right? It's all blogs and websites and it's all social media nowadays. I mean, I don't want to sound like an old fart, but where are the good old days when it'd be crisp, when you'll get that smell of a crisp new magazine? Doesn't happen no more. Doesn't happen. So everything was going downhill. You can't just blame her for it. However, she did get paid quite a lot, so could have saved a lot of money by, kicking her out. She gets a $200,000 yearly allowance for clothes. That's like the price of a house. That's more money than I've ever made in my lifetime. I don't even make that in 5 years. She makes it that's her 1 year petty cash for clothing. Reportedly, she gets like $2 million salary per year, which is more than any editor-in-chief has ever got under the Costa, the company that owns Vogue. Maybe I should have memorized that name. But none of them. Vanity Fair, GQ, any of the previous Vogue, none of them. Then we get to chapter 5. Where is she now? I'll insert a nice little sound effect there. Something that goes but a bit more magical, like a do. So, chapter 5, where is she now? On the 15th of December 2020, the company that owned Vogue promoted Wintour to the role of Chief Content Officer, whatever that job title means. That's worldwide, by the way, as part of the restructuring of the company unveiled. In addition, she will be working as Global Editorial Director of Vogue. So, basically, I think she's just been hired to be Anna Wintour. She still has her finger on the trigger of Vogue, but she doesn't need to be. She doesn't actually need to do any work at all. She's just in the company for being in the company. Probably because she's such an icon, right? You can't ever fire her now. Way too much of an icon. But the story's not finished yet because I know that there's a few things that you are going to want to know. And there are 2 main subjects that you're going to be like, oh, you didn't mention this. I need to know about it. Please tell me the story. So that's what I'm going to do. Starting with The Devil Wears Prada. Lauren Weisberger. She is the author of The Devil Wears Prada novel. She has never publicly admitted that the story, the character, is based on Anna Wintour, despite their obvious similarities. And now I have a list of those similarities, especially for anyone who's seen the film, which, by the way, is what inspired this story. The other week, I've kick-started my Annie Hathaway marathon. My aim is to watch every single Anne Hathaway movie from start to finish. So that's what I'm going to do. I watched Devil Wears Prada and I was like, oh, there's so much more to this woman that needs to be discussed. That will make a great story for What's the Plot? And hey, and here we are, a couple of weeks later, me and you, retelling the story. Oh, how things work out, eh? But here are the similarities. Both Miranda from the book and the real-life Anna Wintour are British. Both serve as editor-in-chief of a major fashion magazine. Both worked at their magazine's overseas counterpart before being transferred to New York City. New York City. Both have a fashion quirk. Wintour wears those large sunglasses, doesn't she? Miranda has the scarf. Both enjoy playing tennis. You know, it turns out Anna Wintour wakes up at like 5:45 every day so she can play tennis before work. Both have 2 children. Both serve on the board of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Both have marital problems that end in divorce. Both are known for their cold, cutthroat personalities. Both have nearly identical offices, which, by the way, prompted Anna Wintour to redecorate hers after the film came out. Now, if you're listening to this, feel free to pull up your phone, take yourself to Google, and Google the offices of Miranda in The Devil Wears Prada and Anna Wintour before she redecorated. They are strikingly similar. If this is on YouTube, don't worry about that. I'll put the photos up for you. Save you the job. But I think the biggest giveaway that it is about Anna Wintour is that Lauren, who wrote the book about an assistant that goes to work for a harsh boss, previously has worked for Anna Wintour. So she was the assistant for Anna Wintour. She worked as the assistant for approximately 11 months before leaving and then writing this novel. Interestingly enough, Anna Wintour went to the premiere of the Devil Wears Prada film wearing a Prada dress. Oh, what an icon. What an icon. To go to Devil Wears Prada as the unconfirmed, confirmed devil and actually wear Prada. Oh, that woman, you've got to love her. She's an absolute icon. As an FYI, the book came out in 2003 and the film came out in 2006. And now you know all you need to know on The Devil Wears Prada. What question do you have next? The Met. Of course it is. You want to know about the Met Gala. How that became so iconic. Well, I'm about to tell you. First things first, let's bust a myth open, shall we? Anna Wintour did not start the Met Gala. The Met Gala has been going on way before her time. It was first created by publicist Eleanor Lambert as a charity event in 1948, way before Anna Wintour was even on the scene. It was made to fundraise the Costume Institute. Originally, it was not even held at the Met. Originally, it was held in venues such as Central Park and the Rainbow Room. The Rainbow Room, by the way, is where the Cosmopolitan cocktail was invented. It's where people like Madonna and Andy Warhol went to. Also, another life story I've got on my list. If you want to see it, let me know. Andy Warhol, what a story that is. He lived a life. But point being, it was not started by Anna Wintour, and it was never even held at the Met. However, now, it's like this huge thing, right? It is massive. Now, in 1971, Vogue had an editor-in-chief called Diana. She joined the Costume Institute as a consultant and began to shape the gala, began to make it into what it is today. So when Wintour became editor-in-chief, she then took over with the Met duties, and she changed again how we see the Met, or how it is today even. She's responsible for pretty much everything, you know. She, as once again, another thing she's got a finger on the trigger of. She's responsible for the guest list, the benefit committee. She decides who goes, who doesn't goes, where everybody sits when they're there. So even if a company pays for a table, which they do, is how they get in, Anna Wintour can just be like, no, absolutely not. She gets final say. She's also in charge of the theme and the fashion pieces that are displayed. Now, here's an interesting fact. You know, celebrities have to pay to go unless they get an invite, and even then they have to be invited, right? That sounds weird. I know, it sounds confusing. Let me explain. Celebrities can expect to pay about $30,000 to attend the Met Gala unless they are invited by a fashion designer. So the fashion designers, or the labels, the companies, the fashion companies, they purchase whole tables, right? The tables cost between $200,000 and $300,000 each. And then they invite celebrities to come sit at their tables wearing their clothes. If you get an invite, you don't have to pay because you're basically paying for your seat. So if the fashion company's already bought the table, you don't have to pay for a seat. If not, you have to pay $35,000. Now here's the thing. If you get invited, as I've mentioned, Anna Wintour can say, no, they're not getting invited. Fair enough. But even if you pay the $35,000, Anna Wintour can still turn around and say, no, you're not coming. So incredibly exclusive. A great example of this is Kim Kardashian didn't get to go for a very long time because Anna Wintour thought that reality celebrities were not really influential and they weren't important enough to be able to attend. She also put some pretty strict rules into the Met Gala. Here are some of the rules. No selfies or social media at all, even though people always do it in the bathroom. You're not allowed to do it. No under 18s allowed. Under any circumstance are you allowed in the building if you're under 18. No smoking. She don't want it. Once again, celebrities always go off into the bathroom to smoke, but you're not allowed to smoke. Here's a weird one. No onion breath. You're not allowed to eat onions. And not just onions, you're not allowed garlic or parsley. So before the Met Gala, there's this famous cocktail party that takes place where there's little, appetizers, antipastis, little snacks before the gala. No onions are allowed in the building. No parsley's allowed in the building because it gets stuck in people's teeth and they see them in the photos. And that pretty much sums up the Met. So very strict. It's a little overhyped, isn't it? Especially, I think nowadays the themes are getting out of control. They're getting weird. This year's, there wasn't really anyone that impressive there. I think the best there has ever been and will be was that time that Blake Lively went with the colour changing dress. That was like the Statue of Liberty. That was absolutely iconic. It cannot be beat. This year, I thought they were terrible. Terrible. My favourite was anyone who was wearing Tom Brown stuff. They all looked fantastic. But everyone else, it's just a bit boring, wasn't it? Except Annie Hathaway. Obviously. And the last thing that you're probably eager to know is all about Bill Nighy, right? Because speaking of the Met, Anna Wintour went hand in hand with Mr. Bill Nighy himself. So rumours have awoken about them seeing each other. Are they not? Probably are. We've got a few statistics on this for you. Other than the fact that they went to the 2023 Met Gala together, we all know that. They've been close since 2010. They started going to fashion events together, and that's when their friendship really bloomed. In August 2021 is when the rumours began to circulate after they were spotted having dinner together in Rome. Once again, head to Google and punch in Bill Nighy, Anna Wintour, Rome, flowers, because he steps out at one point to buy her roses, which for me is like the nail in the head. They're definitely seeing each other. But it's the cutest thing ever to see Bill Nighy with his little suit on, looking all dapper as he does, with some roses with him, and they just go to dinner together. Oh, it's so cute. Once again, if you're on YouTube, I'll put photos of that up. And that solidifies the end of this episode. I'd love to know what you think, if you're a fan of Anna Wintour or not, what you think about her. She obviously gets this reputation of being this hard ass, right? But, sometimes that works. You don't want your boss to be your best mate, do you? She might be hard to work for, but it was probably annoying in the beginning when she would come into companies and make all these changes, and the staff that's been there for years who like the way that it's going and are like, don't like these changes. Or when she wasn't the boss and she's your co-worker and she's making all these changes, that would be incredibly annoying. Nowadays, though, it's like that she's got high standards and that she's very, very, for place of a better word, bossy. So you can't really say anything nowadays. It's her reputation. It's kind of who she is now. And hey, I really want to do a viewer segment on here where you guys get involved. I tell you, I can retell your stories, or I can give you some life advice or whatever it is you want. I would want to get you involved, but I can't do that because I've been asking. I've put it on the YouTube. I've put it on the Instagram. Anyone want to get involved with the podcast? Nobody wants to get involved. Nobody, please, give me your stories and I will read them out. Anything. In fact, if you're still watching this at this point, and if you are on YouTube, this is not for you Spotifyers, but if you are on Spotify, head over to the YouTube, check it out. Comment below. Whatever is commented below, anything. Any single thing that is commented below in this video, I will personally read out in the next episode. You have my guarantee. So I guess with that, we'll conclude this week's episode of What's the Plot? Episode number 4. We've made it to 4. Woo! This is a big celebration time, by the way. 90% of podcasters never make an episode 4. There is a statistic for you if you are into podcasts. They never do it. They do 1, 2, and 3, and they either get bored, they've either turns out not to be as fun as they thought it would be, or they just haven't got the time for it. So they never go on to make a 4th episode. The fact that this is episode 4 means I am now in the top 10% of podcasters, which is brilliant. Ironically, Hannah has not made it to episode 4. So we're not celebrating the podcast, we're celebrating me. Hannah needs to do at least 1 more episode before she can get her badge of 10%ers. But as it stands, whoa, I am in the 10%, y'all. You're in the 10% with me. It's all beautiful. And with that, I shall see you in the next episode.